Hey guys, I'm in major crunch time for my son's wedding, and my next job is to hem the sleeves on his suit jacket a little bit. So I thought, what the heck, maybe I should just make a video of the process while I'm at it. So hopefully this will be a little tutorial on how to hem the sleeves on a suit jacket. This one is the kind with the mitered corner, so they're an extra step a little bit trickier, but I'm going to show you how to do it. The very first step is actually to measure how far up the first button is. And in this case, it's about 1.5 inches, and I think that's kind of standard. And then about a 1/2 inch in the center of the button, about a 1/2 inch from the edge of the fold there. So, but you can measure if you want to make sure they're exactly the same as they were. This one has these little fake buttonhole things on. I'm gonna have to just take at least one of those out, and I don't know if I'm gonna replace. I'll have to move that button up probably. Not sure if I'm gonna replace that thing yet or not. I've never even seen that. So then you start taking it apart. So I've just been starting to take this out. Occasionally they will trim out this fabric in here, and I don't remember if that causes a problem or not. I'll figure it out when I get there. If it did, then you would just have to do it straight like this. You would just have to fold it up the straight way instead of the mitered way. But I'll show you how to do the mitered way also, and then to detach the lining. So I'll finish doing that right now. But first I'm going to show you the lining has this little extra fold. Like it's cut about 1 inch longer than it needs to be. So there's a 1/2 inch there and a 1/2 inch on the other side, so that there's just a little bit of give in there, and then they usually press it down so it looks nice, but there's an extra. This side's still stitched. I don't know if you can see this or not, but extra little fold on the lining, but that just means but in this case, just shorten the lining the same amount that you are shortening the outside, and then you'll be good. Okay, I have it all taken apart, and I've marked, I'm going up 5/8 of an inch, so I've marked my spot on the side that wasn't mitered. And I just put a pin in there because then I can just fold it up and have the pin be right at the fold, and then I know I'm going to be in the right spot. And then I can stitch that. I'm going to do that off camera because I don't have my proper tripod going right now. This was a spur of the moment thing. But the other side, the mitered side, I also put a pin in where I need it, but I just stuck it through the fold. I didn't come back out again because I need to see it on the back side. Okay, so there's what the miter looks like on the outside with the pin 5/8 of an inch up from where it was. So that's where I need to go. Okay, and then I flip it over to the back, and now I can see where my pin comes out. And hopefully I can do this on camera. Okay, so I'm going to line up my ruler with the pin, with where the pin is coming out. Actually, maybe I should just mark that, and that'll be a little easier. Mark a little spot. My pin out. It's kind of a fat spot, but it's okay. Then I'm lining up my ruler with my spot, but I'm also making it parallel to this, so I could put the ruler on the other side if I wanted to be that precise. It actually doesn't matter if it's not perfectly parallel, and you'll see why in a minute, but we want it to be close. And then I'm going to draw a line. There. All right. Now I'm going to put my pin back in because that's where it's going to get folded. But now I need to match up my two white lines, but back to back. So it's a little bit tricky, but once you get them close, then I can stick a pin in and see how I'm doing. So I'll stick a pin through the white line on this side, and if it doesn't hit the white line on the other side, I need to scooch it over. All the while making sure your pin is staying on the edge. Okay, that's pretty close. Okay, I got my white line, so I'm going to put this pin in, and I'm going to do another one to make sure. Farther down my white line, go back out on the other side. Nope, So I need to scooch that over a little bit. Okay, let's try that again. Nope. I may have to move my first one just a little bit because, okay, that one's better. I'm gonna take this one out again. Okay. So they're on opposite sides, but my two white lines are matched up, and that's how you do the miter. So I'm just going to stitch from my pin that's on the fold across here. So I'm going to go do that off camera also, and then I will be right back. Okay, I stitched across my white line, and I stitched the straight side also. So I'm going to turn them right side out and make sure that they're right. I'll find a little pokey thing here. Poke that out a bit. All right, and this one we kind of want to spread that extra fabric out. Poke it in. Poke out the corner on that. Okay. And it looks like it's going to be great. And then I want to also make sure that I didn't accidentally get the bottom one a little bit longer than the top one. I don't want it to stick out. I want to make sure they're exactly right, or the bottom one a smidge shorter. And it looks like they're good. So that's almost all there is to it. This part right here is going to basically just get attached with the buttons. You don't even have to really sew that back together. So you can just put the buttons back on, and then I'll show you in a minute how to reattach the lining. I'm still trying to decide if I want to try to recreate that or not. So I have to think about that for a minute, but really, you know, it wasn't too tricky doing that mitered corner thing. Okay, I'm getting ready to do my other sleeve, and I just remembered what the deal was. I knew that, I haven't done this in like 30 years, guys, but back then I did a lot of them, so I knew I would mostly remember. I knew there was something about sometimes they trim out this extra fabric in the miter, and I just remembered what the deal was. If they do that, it's fine for shortening it because you're going this way, you're moving that line this way. But if you wanted to make it longer, you have to move that line this way. So sometimes if they've trimmed out this extra fabric, then you can't do that. But for shortening it, it's not a problem, which is what I'm doing today. So I'm just going to do the exact same process. But if you need to make one longer, as long as all this fabric has been left in there, you can go down a little ways on the length. And then you may have to add something to the lining, because then that's probably not going to be long enough. But the jacket itself just needs to have this fabric in the corner still where the miter is. Another thing I just remembered, when I told you to draw this line parallel to this line, but I said it doesn't have to be perfectly parallel. It doesn't, as long as you match up, as long as your line is straight and goes through your pin point, and as long as you match up the front and back really well, it will work. It just may be a slightly different angle, like the miter, you know, instead of being a perfectly 45-degree angle, it might be shifted off a little bit, but it's not that hard to make it parallel. I decided that I would add that fake buttonhole back on. My thread was a little thinner and a bit darker, but I just drew a chalk line and zigzagged up one side and down the other with a narrow zigzag. I think that's all they did. So I don't know if that's better than not having it or not, but it'll be mostly under the button anyway. So now I've got my miters all done and pressed. I pressed all the way around the whole hem. And so now I need to mark where the buttons go, which is actually pretty obvious because of these things. And then I'm going to stitch those on, and then it'll be time to put the lining back together, and that's it. Okay, for the lining, I turned it inside out, and I made sure that my underarm seam on the jacket and the lining are both lined up, so that I made sure I didn't twist the lining around. That can actually accidentally happen. So we're good there. And you can see on this lining where it was stitched and where it was creased before. So it was held down like that, but it was actually stitched up a little bit, so there was a little bit of give. So now I want to stitch it. So I'm going to fold it, my 5/8 of an inch that I'm shortening it, up from the stitching line. I'm going to find that and fold it there, and then I'm going to stitch that by hand and pin it and stitch it to about where the lining was attached before. You can kind of see still. So that's just going to be a little bit up from where that crease was before. You want to ignore that for now and shorten it from the stitching line and attach it to the same stitching line. I'm holding the camera in one hand. Okay. And then I'm going to stitch around by hand, and there will then be a little bit of give that I can fold down and make a new crease after that's all stitched around. Another thing I did was I did just a tiny bit of stitching in the ditch on the opposite seam from where the placket is to make sure that stays folded up. So from the outside, stitch in the ditch just a couple stitches. You can see it more on the inside because I missed on the inside, but that's okay. And then that helps make it all stay in place also.